I'm the head of education for young adults, and this is the My Bank, My Moneycast. You just love technical issues. Always the way. We're going to get started, and we're going to move straight into Heads Up, which is going to be our news roundup for the week. Okay, so first up in our news, some of you might be looking for a new job at this time. Well, it turns out that there is an easy job on the block. How would you fancy making £600 a month to test beds? A company called Olivia's is looking for their first comfort connoisseur. They're a relatively posh brand as far as I can see, and they're looking for someone to spend 10 hours a month testing beds. You can see the specs on screen here. So if you meet those requirements, you have some space for a spare bed to test out and want to make an extra £600 a month, their applications close on the 28th of May. So if you fancy trying to make some money from staying in bed all day, then maybe hit up Olivia's. Weird one. Never heard of bed testing as a way to make money, but I'm there for it. Yeah, absolutely legit. On more serious news, EasyJet has been in the news. You may have seen this week. There's been a data breach at EasyJet. They've admitted that there has been a highly sophisticated cyber attack and that approximately 9 million customers have been affected. They think that 2,200 odd of those customers may have had credit card details stolen. And when we're talking about credit card details, we are talking the whole shebang. We're talking the 3-digit code on the back, long digit on the everything. So there are people out there who are really concerned at the moment about whether their accounts are safe and secure. Got a couple of quotes to show you from EasyJet. They said that this was a highly sophisticated attacker, and it took time to understand the scope of the attack and to identify who had been impacted. It's important to say that they found this in January, and it's now that they have to tell people. We could only inform people once the investigation had progressed enough that we were able to identify whether any individuals had been affected, then those who had been impacted and what information had been accessed. So the idea here is that they had to wait and see who had been hurt before they could tell people that they'd been hurt, essentially. Now, the ICO, you may have remembered, we talked about this a few episodes ago. These are the guys that deal with companies who are doing something, out of the realm of normality. People have a right to expect that organizations will handle their personal information securely and responsibly. Where this doesn't happen, we will investigate and take robust action when necessary. And we have confirmed that they are going to be looking into the data breach as well. So if you've traveled with EasyJet or used your cards with EasyJet and you're concerned, do have a look at what's online. The ICO are looking into it at the moment. EasyJet should tell everyone who's affected by May 28th. So you should get an email from them saying, we think your details have been taken, but do make sure that you keep an eye on your bank accounts for the next few weeks, months, just to make sure no one's trying to take any money out. And we'll be talking a little bit about how those scammers might be trying to use that detail to leverage your money again later in the show. Last up, I like to talk about something free to do. I'm a big board game fan. You may have remembered, like I said, that I like to play games, but can't really do that when you're in lockdown. Well, if you are isolating with other people and you want some free games, why not check out this website? This is the Asmodee website. They make a load of board games, and they have released a load of what they call print and plays. Print and plays are board games where you go to the website, find the file you want, click, print, cut out, and off you go. The ones on screen at the moment are called unlock games. They're like escape rooms with a deck of cards, which you can print out at home and then play along yourself. But you can also download other games. There's a very popular one here called Dobble that you can download. And there's one here, Timeline, where you're trying to work out which event came first or last in history. Again, absolutely free. You just go to the website, print them out. And as you can see, I've got a set of them here. I've got the unlock cards. I've got 3 of them already made up. So I can vouch for these. They're a pretty good laugh and a good way to kill some time if you've got a printer at home. So yeah, why not check out those free games? And that's our news roundup for the week. Let's move into the big topic. Now, the big topic this week is a big one. It's scams and your money. And as the COVID crisis continues, we see more and more people trying to use it as a way to make money out of other people. And we're going to be talking about some of those specifics in a bit. But first, let's talk about scams in a more general sense. Let's start with the first thing. What is a scam? Well, a scam is any situation where someone is trying to take money from you that they don't deserve, essentially. So this is normally done a few ways. And the kind of old school thought, if you think about an old con man, if you think about films, think about Ocean's 11, you think about TV shows like Hustle, where the con men are very slick, smart, get away with it, that kind of idea. Actually, scams hurt people. Have a look at this. This is the real impact of how scams can actually hurt someone. It's not cool, it's just theft.
Mr. Rice?
That's my husband.
Is he? And I've got a parcel for him.
He passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I can take it.
It's cash on delivery, and it's £85.
But what is it?
I guess what I'm holding here was most likely the last thing your husband ordered before he passed away. Listen, don't you worry. I'll take it back.
No, wait. I'll get my purse.
Okay.
Now, that clip was taken from the TV show Hustle, which was on BBC for a while, but it shows you the real impact of these kind of scams. These are normal people who get affected by it, and although it's normally portrayed in the media, especially in films, as a kind of cool, hip thing to do, theft pure and simple. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to stay safe from these kind of scams. We're going to talk about how they get your information, because a lot of scams used to be a person going up to someone and having a conversation. Now we've moved online and we've used tech to kind of get to people. So the idea is that a lot of people will do something called phishing, also known as vishing, but we have a video to explain another one called smishing. This is the newest one that's come out. Have a look at this. This is from the Met Police to explain how one way that scammers can use some of the information they have about you to try and get more money out of you.
The coronavirus is not only a serious health issue, but criminals are taking advantage of the situation. They send fake text messages, also known as smishing. You might first get a text from someone you trust. The problem is criminals can spoof trusted numbers and send another text that looks like it's from the same people. And your phone can't tell the difference, so it puts them in the same place. Your smartphone isn't that smart. So, if you receive an unexpected text or email, don't click on any links or attachments until you can double check trusted sources that it's safe. And never respond to any message that asks for your personal or financial details, even if the message appears genuine. It's the simple way to stay safe.
Pretty sneaky stuff. I mean, the ability to spoof a message means that you don't know whether it's come from someone legit or not sometimes. And we're going to talk a little bit later on about what to do if that's the case. But phishing is the same process via email, and phishing with a V, V-I-S-H, is the process of doing that over the phone in a phone call. In fact, if you look up something called social engineering, there's a great YouTube video of someone challenging a hacker to break into their phone account in 2 minutes, and they do it using nothing more than a YouTube video with some crime babies in the background to apply social pressure, get what they want. So a lot of the time, the information that they have on you is stuff that you've offered other places and people have bought the data. Sometimes it's a breach, a data breach, like the EasyJet breach we talked about earlier on. So those customers with EasyJet need to be really careful that they don't get messages from people pretending to be EasyJet and actually being the scammers trying to take you for even more money. The other thing about how they get your information, be careful about offers that seem too good to be true on the internet. When you see those Facebook or pop-up ads that go, you know, put in your details here for the chance to win a £50 Asda gift card, if it's not Asda doing it, question it, because you might be giving your details to a scammer. And it's well known that scammers have something called a sucker list. And a sucker list is once they've got a hit from someone, once someone's fallen for a scam once, you're on the sucker list. And now they'll send you every scam they've got trying to get another hit out of you. So be careful about where you share your details, especially online. And we're going to speak to our guest later on about how to stay a bit more secure in terms of cybersecurity. Now, the next question we have is, what about shops? What about if I get scammed in a shop and someone overcharges me? Well, I'm not going to touch on that today. It's such a big topic. There's a whole law just for that called the Consumer Rights Law 2015. And we're going to cover that not next week, probably the week after in one of our future shows. So if you're wondering where's the information about what happens about if a shop overcharges me or if I'm offered a different price, what's the rules, we are going to cover that. We're just not going to cover it because it's not really a scam. It might be trading standards that you need to look at. Excuse me. We will come back to that in a couple of weeks' time. What I do want to look at is coronavirus scams. And what are the scams that are coming up because of the coronavirus situation? Before we go into the specifics, I wanted to share something with you. This is the little book of big scams. It's produced by the Metropolitan Police, and it's a free PDF. There's a load of PDFs actually at the website you can see below. It just explains how each type of scam works, what you should be looking for, how the scammers will try and take advantage, what sort of damage they might be able to do. It's a great resource if you're not sure about the type of scams we're talking about today. But I highly recommend it. Check out the website, see if there's anything on there that you might find useful. Now, in terms of the COVID-specific scams, I found some information from a friend online. This is friendsagainstscams.org.uk, who I've got this from. They are set up by National Trading Standards, and what they do is they train people in the community to support other people in the community to not become victims of scams. So it's a great scheme, and if you want to get involved, you can see the email below. But the information I've got for you now is coming from them, and this is stuff that they've seen or heard. They've got stories of scammers using these things to try and get money out of people. So let's go through each one. Number one, doorstep crime. This is anything that happens at your doorstep. Someone knocks on your door, tries to scam you out of some money that way. In terms of COVID-19, they've been targeting older people on the doorstep and offering to do shopping. Go to your nan's house and tell your nan, give us a fiver and I'll go down to Sainsbury's to pick up your stuff, and they're just never returning. So obviously be careful about anyone offering services at the door. No way to tell whether they're genuine or not. The other one that's come up is doorstep cleaning services. People offering to clean drives and doorways to kill bacteria and help spread the virus. Well, if you're self-isolating, that's not going to be an issue anyway. And if you are cleaning drives and doorways, that's something you could do yourself. So have a think about whether that's a scam or an actual service. The next one to look at is online scams, and some very specific online scams. So one that I've seen personally is a lot of people have been scammed buying pets. During lockdown, a lot of people have realized that they'd like a little dog or a little cat. And so a lot of people on Facebook and other platforms like that, like, I can't think of the other ones now, but the other places where people go to, kind of Gumtree and those kind of places, there have been people faking listings and taking people's money. So do be careful if you're buying anything online anyway. That's a general rule. But for now, some of the other scams were emails that make it sound like they're from a doctor. We have your test results, and you open the link and it sends you to somewhere a bit dangerous and a bit dodgy. Some have got fake resources. So for example, there's fake coronavirus tracking maps, and when you go to the website, it tries to load a virus onto your machine. I guess the big thing with this is that people are going to exploit the fact that you want information. So you should go to places you trust. Stay with us. Go to places like the government websites and the Mix and other places we've talked about before. Stay to where you know you can trust the information, and don't trust everything you see on social media. Big thing out there. Now, refund scams are scams where sometimes you might have been the victim of a scam, you're on a sucker list, and then they phone you up and go, well, for another £100, we can help you get the money back, and then they just take the £100 off you. We're seeing a lot of refund scams coming around the holiday market, and people phoning up saying, we can get the refund out of your holiday company. You just pay us 10% in up front and we'll get the money back from you. Doesn't work. Absolutely not true. And then you lose that 10% you give it to the scammer as well. So not only are you potentially risking your holiday because you haven't paid the deposit or paid the rest of the balance, but now you've got a scammer telling you they can get the money back when they really can't. Same thing actually for people who have cancelled weddings. There are companies trying to set up, we can get your money back. Chances are they're not, and they're just going to take your cash from you. Counterfeit goods. Now, counterfeit, if you don't know, means fake. So fake goods of any description. At the moment, the big things are face masks. People making fake face masks, saying they're N95 face masks when they're really not. Fake hand sanitizer. There's been reports of a hand sanitizer containing a potentially harmful ingredient that was banned in 2014 that's being sold on some online sites. So we're seeing a rise in people selling fake goods, and that's a scam in itself. If you buy something which you think is genuine and it turns out to be fake, you've been scammed. Telephone scams, people calling you up and trying to get money out of you. There's more and more of a risk as people tend to self-isolate that people will phone up and offer you things like extra credit. But they might also pretend to be like your mortgage company or your utility company or your landlord saying, where's the money? We need you to make a payment right now. And the big thing about this is that they will try and use panic and speed and, you need to do this right now, please, or I'm going to cut your service off. So the big thing with telephone scams is take a breath. We'll talk about how to solve it, but don't do anything rushed. Make sure you take a second to think about whether or not you're being scammed or not. Unfortunately, we're seeing a rise in donation scams. People setting up fake charities who are collecting for COVID relief and then going door to door and trying to take money, and it doesn't go anywhere. It goes to the pocket of the person who set up the fake charity. Now, if you do have someone who's asking you to donate to charity, you can ask for the charity number for the charity they're collecting for, and you can look that up and see if they're a real charity. And if you're still suspicious, call the charity and find out whether they have this sort of scheme going on. But do be careful about anyone raising for coronavirus funds that you might not have heard of. They might be a scam. The last thing to talk about, kind of a scam, kind of illegality, loan sharks. Loan sharks are lenders who are not allowed to lend. They have no license to lend in this country at all. And they will lend to you normally on really dodgy terms, payers, or there'll be violence involved and intimidation. So something to bear in mind when you're thinking about loan, like if you need to lend money, make sure you're lending from safe places. Go back and watch our episode on debt and borrowing and think about APR and cost, and make sure you're not just borrowing from Bob down the pub, because the chances are, if he hasn't got a license and he's not an actual company, there might be some ramifications you might not foresee, including threats and intimidation. So these are the sort of things we're seeing now for COVID-19, but there are generic things that we need to talk about as well. Let's go back to the main screen and let's talk about how to stay safe. So, how do I avoid getting scammed in the first place? We said earlier on that you can avoid giving out your information. That's one thing you can do. But the Met Police gave us some other information we're going to show you now about how you can avoid being the victim of a scam, especially at this time. So, number one, watch out for any phishing. So, scam emails, messages. Don't click anything that you're not sure about. And actually, I wouldn't click anything in an email. I would go and use the email I already had for a company or a phone number I already had for a company. I wouldn't use the links in the message. That's silly. Be aware of ransomware. Ransomware's scary. They put it on your computer, it locks down your computer, and then they say, pay us in Bitcoin normally, or we're never going to give you your files back. Now, you can reset your PC. Your PC's not broken. You can get your PC back, but your files might not be. So it's really important that you have some form of cybersecurity software on your machine. Got those kind of things through. If you're shopping online, trying to use sites that you trust, you know are reputable. We'll be talking to our cybersecurity expert a little bit on about what you should be looking for online to make sure it's safe. If you're making a purchase and you can use a credit card, use a credit card and then pay it straight back, rather than using your debit card. Because when you make purchases on credit cards, you have extra protections. If you spend more than £100, there's other protections as well, but against fraud, there's a lot more protection on a credit card than a debit card. So one thing to think about may be, if you've got a credit card but you've got the cash, pay it on the credit card, pay it straight off with the cash, job's a good one. Don't buy goods on the doorstep. Very hard to get any protection when you're doing that kind of stuff. And the last thing is, if you have smartphones, laptops, any form of tech around the house, make sure it's at the latest update, because when you don't update your software, that's when the hackers find the little gaps to get through. So make sure you're installing all the latest software on your phones, on your laptops, on your tablets. Make sure those devices are as secure as they can. Now, the last thing is, what do I do if I've been scammed? If I think I've been the victim of a scam, who do I speak to? So, a few places you can go here, but the first thing to do is protect yourself from further risk. So, whichever method you use to find out you've been scammed, maybe it's a bank telling you that you've had withdrawals, maybe it's a food delivery company saying that your address has been changed, the first thing you need to do is contact that company and say, that wasn't me. Protect yourself from further risk. Then, once you've done that and you've stopped that risk, you need to check whether you can get your money back. Now, there are cases where you might not be able to get the money back, particularly if you have sent the money via transfer of your own free will. If no one's gone into your account and taken the money out, it may be harder for you to get your money back. And in fact, there are a lot of banks who don't guarantee to get your money back in that circumstance. So do check whether you can get your money back. Call your bank. Also call 101 and let the police know that this has happened, because they will start to the proceedings of getting a crime reference number if you need one for your bank. The other thing you should do is report the scam to Action Fraud. Action Fraud are a police department who basically look at all the scams and they track scams. So if they see a wave of scams happening in a certain area, they know that there's one scammer doing this thing in this part of town, they'll start to look for that person there. So really important that you do those three things. Protect yourself from further risk by contacting the company that you've seen has been breached, by checking if you can get your money back with your bank and by calling 101 and talking to the police, and then report the scam with Action Fraud so they know it's happening and they can offer some support as well. Now, if your cards have been stolen or lost, or there's a transfer that you're suspicious about, call your bank as soon as possible. I had one personally. I was on a food delivery app and I got an email saying, your address has been changed. Didn't change the address, so I thought, okay, fine, fair enough. And then within 3 seconds, your phone number has been changed. Your name has been changed. Everything except my bank details. So I panicked, which I think a lot of people would. Panicked, and I called them. I said, listen, that's not me. I didn't change any of these things. And that's when they told me, actually, there's a £40 order currently in progress on that account going to an address somewhere in Sussex. Now, I don't live in Sussex. I live in London, and it's not anywhere near Sussex where I live. So clearly someone had hacked my account, and my fault. I use the same account everywhere. And when someone found my password on one thing, they had my password to everything, and that's how they got in. So I learnt my lesson the hard way, and now I have a different password for everything, which can be a pain to remember, but there are ways to do it, and we'll talk about that at the end of the show. Like I say, if you have been hit, contact Action Fraud as well. And here are some websites that you might find useful. Action Fraud to report that on. Citizen Advice has a really good website section around have you been scammed, and you can look at what sort of things are recommended for you to do next. That website. Money Saving Expert also has a section where you can talk to other people about what's going on. So if you're not sure if it's a scam or not, you can go there and have a look. Also some good advice. Friends Against Scams, the group we mentioned earlier on, who are training people to be safer in their communities, and the link for the little book of big scams that the police put out in case you want more information about scams in general. So that has been Scams in Your Money for this week, and I think we're going to move into real talk. And this week on Real Talk, I am joined by Oscar Asiwando. Have I said that right?
Yes, you did.
Oh, score. I was worried about that. I've been worried about that all day. Who's going to be joining us, talking a little bit about cybersecurity, but also about his experience with us at MyBnk. How are you doing, Oscar?
Yeah, I'm dying for a haircut a little bit, but otherwise I'm good. I'm good.
I think we're all getting there at this point. I think we're all getting there. So the question, so we said YAP member in your introduction.
Yes.
Do you want to explain a little bit about what that means? What do we mean by YAP member?
Yeah, of course. So, of course, my bank is trying to create programs for young people to be using in their schools and outside in real life. What the YAP does, or the Youth Advisory Panel, is they are a group aged 9 to 25 who essentially look at the programs before they go out and sort of evaluate it. So essentially, these programs are made for young people, almost by young people, to make sure that it's as authentic as possible and to make sure that it works.
Awesome, and I love that. And so when you were part of the app, you were doing kind of program development and stuff and get kind of thing.
Yes.
Awesome, great. If you are interested in being part of that group or doing that kind of stuff, info@mybank.org. Get a hold of us. We're looking for people who want to be involved, and you might want to get involved in this show. Maybe that's the thing you want to do. Let us know. So let's talk about the reason you're here today. You're about to be studying cybersecurity. Is that right?
Yes, I am. I'll be a cybersecurity student in September in London, actually.
So, and I know you've been doing some research into this. So I guess my first question is, why cybersecurity? I mean, there's lots of other things you could do with your talents. Why cybersecurity as a field?
Yeah, well, as we go into the future, of course, the internet is becoming a lot more important, as the days go by. And that means that people are relying a lot more on the internet, not only for their own safety, but just to live their lives. And it doesn't take very much effort or very much knowledge for a hacker to be a hacker. There are lots of scripts that you can use in order to ruin someone's day. But if you are a specialist in that, then you can stop essentially 50 at once. So it's as long as the internet is relevant, you are relevant.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember seeing a video. There was I think it was a Nest camera, and a good guy hacker, we call them white hats. There's white hats and black hats. Had dialed into the camera and told the person, "Listen, I've got your password. You might want to change it because it's been leaked online." So I guess it's that kind of protective type vibe, right? Looking after keeping yes. Safe.
Exactly.
Cool. Now, wonderful that you want to do that, but surely it's better for us to do that as well and have a little bit of it on our shoulders rather than just being on cybersecurity experts like yourself. Is there any kind of basic mistakes you've made or your mates have made around cybersecurity that you think people would be useful to hear?
Yes. So the first one I think you were talking about earlier actually is phishing. That is a hacker or just a malicious person essentially trying to gather information that they shouldn't have legally. And that can be done by sending an email with a link. And that link doesn't necessarily have to go to a bad website. It can go to even YouTube. But so long as you've clicked on that link, they suddenly have all the information from you. I've tried it and I've been able to get things like people's battery lives and where they live, exactly where they've been at what time.
Battery lives? You got the battery life of their device?
Everything. You have how long it's been around, when it was bought. You have literally everything just from one click of a link. It's so you need to know what kinds of links to click on. One bit of advice I can give is if the beginning of the website is HTTPS, that's a good sign that it's secure. Yeah. And there's a sort of lock image at the side of the link as well.
Yeah.
That shows that it's secure and that they have certificates and things like that to back them up.
Awesome. I guess the last thing for us today is, apart from the HTTP tip, Any other kind of top tips for staying safe? I mean, we know lots of people out there trying to get our money. We talked about that. Lots of different ways, especially online with selling goods and phishing and that kind of stuff. If you had to give a kind of, this is what you must do to stay safe, what would that be?
Yeah, so I would say have a look at your password. There's not really a reason for you to have a password like, I don't know, your name and surname, and maybe even a 1 at the end, because hackers don't really need to put a lot of effort in order to get your passwords. They can put, the most common passwords in a script and then run them all, which is called a brute force attack, to get into your account. However, if you do things like add in capital letters or add in numbers or add in symbols, suddenly the difficulty of your password increases dramatically, to the point where even if you were to guess every single letter and every single symbol until you got it, it would take hundreds of thousands of years to get it.
To get all the right permutations, like capitals and stuff as well.
Exactly. Whereas Barbie Girl 1, 2, 3, 4 might take a week at most, and that's me being generous. Yeah.
One thing I will say is there's a website called Have I Been Pawned, spelled PWNED. Okay, you must have heard of this then, where you can put in your email address and it tells you where it's been breached. So which websites have leaked your email or some data to do with you. And it was scary. I remember doing my work email going, it'll be fine, and 3 breaches came up. And that's scary. So yeah, I think make sure, passwords are a massive thing. Oscar, I'm going to run it there because we're running out of time. But thank you very much for joining us, and good luck with the studies as well.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and glad to be here.
Great, thank you very much. And we're going to move on to the last bit of today's show, and that is our top tips. All right, so as always, I'm going to round up with this 3 last top tips that I want to give you for staying safe around scams. Here's the first one. Be aware of any opportunity that asks you to pay up front for it, or you need to keep it secret, or you need to do it right away. 3 massive red flashing warning signs that something might not be right there. If someone's rushing you, if someone's telling you that an opportunity which normally would be free is going to cost you £100, or they're trying to get you to not tell people about it, be suspicious. I think that sounds a little bit dodgy. Next one, try to ensure that you have different passwords for all your accounts. We just said that. But then how many different passwords are you going to have? Use a password manager. There are some reputable ones out there. Have a look, do your own research. Actually, one of the things I remember someone saying to me a few weeks ago was it's actually safer to write your passwords on a piece of paper in your house now than it is to put it in a note in your phone, because it's easy to hack into your phone. As Oscar was just saying, he can find out what your battery's at. I'm sure you could get a note out of your phone, but who's going to bother breaking into my house and into my drawer to get my bit of paper with all my passwords? So it might be a safe way to keep them, but a password manager might be just as good. Lastly, the last one is if you get a message from someone saying something scary or exciting, don't contact them using the details in the message. Use your own contacts. There's one scam, for example, where it would be like, you've just got a tax refund from HMRC because of COVID-19. Call us now. But if you call that number, it's going to cost you £20 a minute and you won't get anything back from HMRC. Whereas you could just find that number from HMRC on Google, call them yourself, say, is this a real thing? They'll tell you straight away it isn't. So make sure you're using the contact details for places that you trust and you used before, and don't use the contact details that are in the message itself. And that's my 3 top tips for this week. And we're about to wrap up for this week. So, if you'd like to get involved, remember these are all the social media channels you can find us on. You can leave us a message, put it in the chat, or just send us an email if you want to send us one at info@mybank.org. Next week, we're probably going to be looking at investments versus savings. What should you be doing? Should you be saving your money in a savings account? Should you be trying to open an investment portfolio? What the hell am I talking about when I say investment portfolio? We'll cover all of that and more next week, live at 4 p.m. But until then, my name is Nick Smith Patel. I'm the Head of Education for Young Adults at MyBank. Saying thanks for joining us again, and we'll see you next week. Stay safe, take care, bye bye.